Good morning and welcome to Wednesday. It's January 18th, 2023. That means it's time for the Education Town Hall here on We Act Radio, which is located in the heart of downtown Anacostia, down the street from the Big Chair in Southeast Washington, D.C. However, we are coming to you live via our virtual platforms that I consider to be Anacostia adjacent. I first want to begin by thanking the creator for this day and for the opportunity to present to you the latest installment of the Education Town Hall. This is your humble servant and host, Thomas Bird, and I will be joined shortly by my associate producer, Valerie Jablow. I think we're going to have an outstanding show today. I know I say things like that all the time, but I really do because we have some very special, wonderful individuals that are joining us today. And I say that not based on me knowing them because I don't, but I'm saying it because of their profession and what they do. And I hold them in high regard and veneration. We're going to be joined by Kristie Edwards, who is the principal at Randle Highlands Elementary School. We're also joined by Charlette Butler-Strickland, who is the principal at Hart Middle School, which is my alma mater. I went to Hart. I was a proud, I can't even remember the mascot, but anyway, I must be getting old. And we're going to be joined by Courtney Wilkerson, um, who is, I think, yep, there she is. Courtney is Wilkerson is joining us, and she is the principal at Roosevelt High School and formerly principal at Sousa Middle School. So I want to thank you all three for joining us here today. This is a safe space for you. Um, we will have a conversation. We don't do interviews. We have conversations about education. So I want you to all unmute yourselves. I want you to just show a little bit about yourselves. Introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. And I want to know why you do what you do. So let's start with Principal Butler Strickland.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Principal Charlette Butler-Strickland. I have been the principal here at Hart Middle School for the past 9 years. I have been in DCPS leadership for the past 15 years. Why I do what I do? Because I feel it is absolutely important that every single child should have an exceptional educational experience, no matter where they are.
Fantastic. Principal Edwards.
Good afternoon. I'm Principal Kristie Edwards at Randle Highlands Elementary School. This is year 7 for me as the principal at Randle. I've done 13 years in DCPS and 9 years in North Carolina. Why am I doing this work? Because this is hard work. Like this is the work that we've been called to do, and so I do it with a sense of urgency, knowing that we are preparing our scholars for that next step in life. So it's important that we take this with a sense of urgency and understand our responsibility to these students.
And last but not least, Principal Wilkerson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Principal Wilkerson. I am a native Washingtonian, and I have served in the capacity of a principal. As introduced, the first 7 years at Sousa, I was actually assistant principal at H.D. Woodson to begin my DCPS leadership career. And now I'm currently the principal at Roosevelt High School. And I do this work every day because I believe every student in every class, in every ward, in every zip code deserves to have the best opportunities to thrive, and that we are called, we are chosen to do this work. And in order for us to create those paths for students, like we just have to be willing to lead people from one side of the bridge to the other. And that's what we all do every day. That's what I do every day. And I'm very fortunate to have other colleagues such as Principal Edwards and Principal Butler-Strickland who are committed and partners in this work with me. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, thank you all three again for being here with us today on the Education Channel. I heard kind of a theme going through there. Our students, our scholars should be getting a quality education no matter where they live. And so at some point in this conversation, I'm going to ask, are they getting it? So, but right now, I'm going to swing over to my partner, Valerie Jablow, to get the conversation started.
Oh, thank you, Thomas, and welcome all. It's great to see you here. It's great to hear voices of people who are in our schools. One thing that really just struck me hearing from all of you is that you're, I think, kind of outliers in DCPS, aren't you? Because you've all been with DCPS more than the average principal. And we talk about teacher retention in DC, but principal retention is a huge issue too. And I know that schools have been roiled by losing beloved principals and sometimes at chaotic times. So I wanted, just setting that as a first statement, I wanted you to talk about some issues of importance specifically at your schools, as well as some of the challenges that you face. And I know these are big things, so you just jump in whenever somebody says something that is important. But Principal Wilkerson, I wanted to start with you because you've had now the leadership position at 2 DCPS schools. And I thought, you have in that capacity kind of an interesting perspective. So please step in and take it from here.
Oh, well, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to, to share the experiences. I truly believe that everybody sit in this seat, whether you're a first-year principal, an aspiring principal, if you will, a current sitting principal. We all recognize that there are groups of students, there are groups of teachers, there are communities that we connect with and that we're called to lead. And so sometimes that leadership journey takes us from one ward to the next or one cluster to the next, but it's only so that way we can continue to expand our territory, if you will, by providing more opportunities to more students. When I was a principal at Sousa, that was a unique experience because I'm born and raised in DC, in Southeast. I was raised in Hillcrest. 2 of the schools that I went to, Winston Educational Campus, which is now closed, and the original Hart Middle School, which is now closed. Those are 2 schools where I became who I am. It's where I had community from the teachers, from the educators. It was a time where when you walk down the street, if you were late to school, 3 or 4 neighbors were going to say, why aren't you in school yet? Right. And so,
That's right.
Yeah, and so for me and my leadership at Sousa, I was able to jump right into that space and have, I could run my resume of family, cousins, brothers, aunts, uncles, or whatever, just from being in the neighborhood, which creates an immediate sense of community, which really creates trust. And I was grateful in that I was able to have that trust going in to lead a lot of the innovative work that we did at Sousa. For those of you who don't know, Sousa is the 1954 school, represents Washington, D.C. In the Brown v. Board case. We were the only federal case.
Yep.
And so we meaning me and my leadership team and our teachers and our students and our community, really embraced the history and the legacy of our school at the time. Well, their school still, but my school at the time, in order to really center that and create a connection for students. Ultimately, we wanted Sousa to be a place that was meaningful to kids, right? We wanted them to know that they're part of something. And it's not just about math, English, science, and social studies. It's about how do we create an opportunity for you to figure out what's the thing that excites you? How can you be an agent of change in your community? So that was the lens that I had at Sousa, and now transitioning over to Roosevelt, excited to learn so much of the Ward 4 community, the history of the community, the history of the school. There are a lot of amazing people in Ward 4 and at Roosevelt who have been here for as long or longer than I was at Sousa, if not longer than my tenure in DCPS. I have one staff member who's been here 26 years, right? And so just through that shows right then and there, community is also a strong part of our Roosevelt community. So I'm able to instantly tap into that and lean into that. The community here has welcomed me with open arms. I mean, it's just been amazing, which reminds me that no matter what ward you are in the city, we are a community that loves, right? And there's a lot of stuff happening, right? There's a lot of violence. We could talk about all the bad stuff all day long, but when we really dig into what's happening in our schools, the joy we see, the successes we see, the triumphs we see, that's the thing that no matter where you are as a school leader, you're excited to do. You're excited to lead. You're excited to see students come back and find you. So, like, I'm just really, really thankful that the Roosevelt community selected me for this role to lead them into our next level of greatness. And I'm here for the ride.
Wow. You said quite a bit. And I'm sitting here. There's so much I could unpack with that. I'm like, oh my God, I would need 2 hours just to unpack what you just said. So I won't get into that. But you provoked a number of questions. But let's move on to Principal Edwards and hear what she has to say.
Oh, so I'm probably going to piggyback off what Wilkerson said. You all said that we probably, are outliers because of our tenure here in DCPS. But I think for me, and I know I worked with Principal Wilkerson before, and I'm sure Principal Butler-Strickland could agree, the biggest part is about building community, not just outside of the school, but inside of the school was very important. So coming into, especially a Ward 7 school, where there's already this narrative that they put in place around schools in Ward 7, we had to be intentional about changing that narrative. And it started with inside. It started with the consistency of the teachers that we have in our building. It started with making sure that everyone felt valued. And I think that's what allowed me to stay in this position for such a long time, is because I took that role and I made sure that I understood what were the needs inside of our building so that then it could trickle outside of the building. And in doing so, like, we've seen test scores soar. We've seen parents come back and bringing, grandchildren, cousins, getting referrals for the school, because they understand that one thing that we were big on is showing not only just building community, but also demonstrating love. Like, people feel loved when they come to Randle Highlands. Like, they understand what that looks like and what that feels like by the time they walk into the building, which makes it a nurturing learning environment. Like, if a person doesn't feel like they're welcome in that space, then they're not going to grow there. And I think we always put a lot on our students, but we need to also understand the human capital that we have in our building as well, that we also need to nurture too. So I think for us, coming in with that mindset of, I'm not only going to breathe life into these children, but I'm going to breathe life into these adults that I'm working in as well. I built capacity so that I can be outside my building or sit and have these talk show meetings, because I know that my building is well taken care of, right? I'm not even in my building. I'm at a cluster meeting right now, but I know I don't get phone calls about my building because I put in place people who I know can do this work without me even being there. So just understanding, like, when I walked in, doing inventory, right? Evaluating who I have, evaluating the capacity of people that I have in the building, talking with them and finding out what they need in order to continue to grow. Because as a leader, you also have to learn how to build leaders. And so in doing that, I took that time to, like, work through my students, understanding what they need, hearing, when I go into classrooms, not just listen to the teachers teach, but listen to the students responding. So it was just about, like, making sure that I understood what my school environment needed. Also the parents, like, understanding what they needed in order to continue to build out Randle Highlands. And that's why, we've done so many great things, and we are hitting jewel in Southeast DC. You don't hear a lot of stuff about Randle because we over there working. Like, we're too busy working. I ain't got time to be doing a whole bunch of stuff, Twitter and all that stuff. I got work to do. So for me, it's about me making sure that I'm in the trenches with who I'm working with and who I'm serving with, to make sure that our community continues to grow.
Boy, that's so exciting. I'm listening to you guys. You're so exciting. So now let's hear from Principal Butler-Strickland. Then I have a question I want to ask each of you.
I am not from Washington, D.C. I am a native of North Carolina. And I began my career in D.C. at Wilson High School. And I was absolutely pushed, called, prodded to be the principal at Hart Middle School. Knew nothing about Southeast, but one thing I knew is that whatever school that I had the opportunity to lead, we were all going to collectively work together to make it an amazing school. And I believe that it's important to have those three strong pillars. You have to have a strong educational staff in your building. You have to have strong relationships with your students and strong relationships with the families in the community. And so it takes a lot of work. Exactly what Kristie said, like, you have to start with the adults first. I think sometimes people forget that if you don't take care of the people who take care of the kids are not going to be taken care of. So I had to start there. figuring out what they need. How do I support them? How to create professional development for them that fits for them, that's going to work towards the kids. And so getting the adults in the building to do the work is what's extremely important. And I tell them all the time, the most valuable thing that we have in this building is our students, is their voice, is their future. And that's what we all have to make sure we connect with. So within that same conversation of taking care of the adults, because I tell them, if I take care of you, you got to take care of my kids. And building those relationships with the students. So every student in school knows, they know my phone number and they know how to reach me. And they know if they have a question that they can come to me. But they also have to have those same relationships with the teachers that they teach. So the kids in our school building, they know the adults love them. That we're about protecting them, and we're about providing them a strong, academic, engaging environment, which requires sometimes, especially for us old school people, you got to listen to the kids. And so if no one's sitting down listening to what the students say, then are we really imparting what we need to impart on them? So our kids know we give them opportunity to voice their opinion, and they design the space that we have here in our school as far as with our electives and how our school presents itself. So that means we as adults have to shift. So if our students feel like that it's important for us to engage with them on social media, if we need to engage with them in different kinds of ways, then that means the adults are going to have to make that shift, because we want to make sure we're providing an opportunity for them that they can relate to and that we can push them in the same way. So really big on everyone having a voice in the building. We're a connected school, connected in the sense of like, we have a strategic advisory system here in our school. So when a kid comes to our school, they're in an advisory, and it's gender-based, and they are supported by 2 adults from 6th grade all the way to 8th grade. So when their parent calls, they know they can call Principal Jones, or they can call Miss Jones, and Miss Jones can tell them their grades. They can tell them what's going on with them academically. So parents don't have to feel like they need to know everybody in the building. But if they're connected to that one adult who's going to call them, who's going to text them, who's going to check on them, that makes a large school even more connected. And because our parents have that kind of relationship, they feel more open to say, hey, I need this. I'm struggling with this. This is what's going on in my house right now. I may need you to have a conversation with my child because we're struggling with this. So this allows us to make sure we're forming those same relationships that we have with our students, with our parents as well, because we need them. It is very critical at this middle school stage that you have those relationships with parents, because all of us need to be singing the same song and we need to be supporting our kids. So I'm really big on community. I'm really big on, and we're really big, and not just me, we're really big on celebrating academic excellence, because our students have to understand like what's after here. When you leave here in 8th grade and go to high school, what's next? Have we thoroughly prepared you for what's next? So we do a lot of those courageous conversations with our students about why academics are important. Even if you choose not to pursue post-secondary education, you have a clear idea of what these options are available for you. So we are really big on taking care of the whole child. We really, really push academics. We are the only 3-star secondary school, DCPS secondary school in Ward 8.
The great Ward 8. But listen, let me just say this real quick. I attended Hart in the 60s when it was a junior high school. I went there 7th, 8th, and 9th grade before I went up to Ballou. And there's been, I can see a lot of changes going on. Many years later, when I was a parent empowerment specialist for Ward 8, working for the DC Parent Information Resource Center, Hart was one of my schools that I tried to build, tried to help create increased and enhanced parental involvement. So parental involvement is most important to me because that's the area that's closest to my heart. So I also was the PTA area director. So Hart was one of my schools. So I've created PTAs. So I want to ask you all three, what specifically are you doing to increase parental involvement? I hear some of that in your opening remarks, but what specifically are you doing? Because I look at parental involvement as not just being parents coming to the school to watch their children in a program or something. Parental involvement to me is parents doing things that leads to their academic progress of their students and all students. So what in those areas, what things are you doing to achieve student achievement through parental involvement?
All right. You want to go, Wilkerson?
Whoever wants to jump in. This is a round robin. Whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll just first to start to say that one of the things that was really critical in my own leadership lens was changing the language from parent engagement to caregiver partnership. And really focusing on caregiver partnership allowed us to all come to the table recognizing that caregivers and school-based staff, if you will, we all bring an extreme value to the relationship and partnership, all for the benefit of the student, right? And we also have to be willing to reposition ourselves in the way that we perceive what does it look like, sound like, or feel like when a caregiver is demonstrating and showing true engagement with us as a school, but also interest and ownership in the success of their student. And a lot of times from a place of privilege, it's really easy for us to say, oh, well, parents don't come to back to school night, so they're not engaged. Parents don't come to a teacher conference, so they're not engaged. And that's so far from the truth. One, because parenting and caregiving today has had to look a lot different than what we have all experienced when we were in schools, right? And everything from the pandemic to just the nature of the society that we're living in and the way people have to show up in order to be caregivers for their students. So from a school perspective, I'm always challenging, when I was at Sousa and here at Roosevelt, challenging us to think about how are the different ways that we create an equitable relationship with our caregivers and how are the ways that we empower them, right? So one very explicit example is moving from a conference that really kind of asserts the school as the power figure with saying this is what your child is or isn't doing, but equipping the child to be the owner of the learning and to identify this is what I'm working towards, this is my goal, this is how I'm doing it, this is who's working with me to do it, these are the resources that are provided from the school, and then this is also what I need from you, mom, dad, aunt, sister, cousin, whoever the caregiver might be. Because again, from a place of privilege, it's really easy to just assume there's a mother or a father in the home. And there's a lot of people who care for our children. And there's a lot of people we need to be partners with. So first, like I said, equipping the student to be the owner of their learning and identify what they're working towards. And then creating opportunities for caregivers to know what is happening at the school academically, as well as in the community, right? So it's not just about, to your point, oh, we're having an event, come and participate. It's not just about we're having a game, come to the game. It's about these are academic programs, these are the social justice programs, these are the vocational programs that we have here, and these are ways that you can participate. And those ways look very different depending upon, again, the needs of the family, the needs of the caregiver, and the outcomes of that program.
So,
right?
So let me interrupt because you touched on something that's important, and you don't have to have parents all of them running up to the school to have them be involved or caregivers. I'm gonna use your terminology now. I'm so focused on. We had a program that was actually in Sousa. I put my colleague put in Sousa called Parents as Partners. But anyway, I'll give you some anecdotal evidence. There was a school district down in the Southwest. There was a group of students that were testing often every performance measure, every indicator. They were doing great on, better than anybody else. So the Board of Education decided we need to find out what's going on. They went out and found out that the parents of those students were all migrant workers. But the thing of it is, they couldn't come to the school. But what they did was they instilled in their students at home, you need to get a great education. So to me, a great education starts with caregivers in the home. They don't have to run up to the school as long as they're providing the things, the tools, the support that at home that needs to happen for those students. I think that goes a long way. So that's what I wanted to hear. Either any one of you doing anything like that. I think I heard you, Principal Wilkins, say you're empowering your caregivers and they know what's going on in school, but do they understand that they have a role to play at home as well?
Oh.
Yeah, I think I start with the belief that caregivers know they have a role to play at home, right? I think just regardless, I think that we have to be willing to see that the roles look differently. family makeups are different, family responsibilities and things are different, and we as a school had to be willing to realize those things and know what we do differently to help them be successful. But I honestly believe no matter how a parent might articulate their concern or their passion, it might not be the words or the way in which I would do it,
Yeah.
right? But I believe that they're doing it because they want what's best for their child. And
Always assume that.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Always assume they want the best.
yeah, always. So with that assumption, I believe at a most basic level, 100%, caregivers definitely know that they want to do what's the best thing for their kid. They just want to know how they can do it with us as partners.
Yep. Valerie.
I wanted just to jump in and ask Principal Edwards, how does the idea of equipping a child to own his or her own learning work at the elementary school level? I can see how it works at the middle and high school level.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know if this was something that you do, and I wanted to also bring in Principal Butler-Strickland on this too.
Definitely. So it's about expectations that we're setting for our students, right? It's about how we center our instruction. It's about what we're implementing day to day and what we're hearing students say and do in the classrooms. So for us, it's about making sure that students understand that, like, you are accountable for your learning. I'm going to make sure that we have the right people in the building to teach you, but what role do you play in getting this, right? You're taking this to the next level. It's you that has to get this acquisition and then take it to the next level, right? Make sure that you can take it home with you. Make sure that you can share it with your classmates. So when you walk into a classroom around, you should hear students talking. I always tell the teacher, the kids should be tired, not you, because you've already front loaded everything for them to do, right? And so as I walk into this classroom, my expectation is I'm seeing the children talking. I don't want to see the teachers on the stage all the time. Get off the stage and hand the mic to the kids. And I want to walk in and hear the students having engaging conversations around what they're learning. They can be able to tell me what their objective is. They can be able to do their turn and talks. They can be able to do their stop and jots. They can be able to lead the classroom. Like I walked into a first grade class last week and saw a student leading instruction in the first grade classroom, because that's the expectation that students need to be able to lead each other in the classrooms, right? So it's about the teachers making sure that they're intentional about how they're planning on different levels to ensure that every student has access to that learning. And once they do, not only are they expected to create students who can be models in the classroom, but then those students model for their classmates. And in turn, they start continuing to build that. It's a domino effect in the classroom, right? Because if I walk in the classroom and I see the teacher doing all the talking, I'm definitely having a meeting with them. And we're like, why is it I only hear your voice, right? You've already got this knowledge. They need to get it. So then it's about me coaching them or bringing in coaches to help them learn how to release, because sometimes it's about delegating, right? And releasing that power. And as teachers, a former special ed teacher, I was like, okay, I'm holding all of this power to myself. I'm the one that runs this, right? Not allowing my students to show their greatness. But then when I realized that once I released it, they actually were able to show like the work that I was doing with them to be able to demonstrate like their knowledge base, right? So just being able to like release that power is something that we've really pushed teachers to do for the students that have in the classroom. So you should be able to see that from a K to a 5th grade class at Randle Highlands.
Principal Butler-Strickland, do you want to?
And let me just give you a cautionary note here, Principal Butler-Strickland. We take a quick pause at 12:30, so it's 12:28 now. So you got 2 minutes to get your remarks in.
I'll make it quick. It's creating a strong academic culture where everybody understands their status. Like one thing I've learned and we've learned a lot about is we think that we've explained things to kids on why you need to do this. And we really spend a lot of time, like as it relates to any test or any assessment or any piece of information, making it connect to them. And once you spend time with any student and let them know the real why, then the light bulb goes off about, okay, this is how I need to move when you put an assessment in front of me or an assignment in front of me. And so with giving kids that power of knowledge of why and how this connects to them, then they buy in more, then they understand more, then they're able to go home and explain to their parent that this is what we're doing at school. And this is why it's important to me. And then they begin to ask their parents some questions about what they're learning. And then that's how you bring the parent into the space without even having them to come into the classroom. And so we tell them, we give them prompts. Go home and ask your parent this question. and see what their response is. And that's how we bring them into our classroom, as well as we invite them to come in. We invite them to be guest speakers. We invite them to go on field trips. We invite them to be a part of the learning. We also make it a point to, because even as a parent myself, sometimes I just don't know exactly how I can support my child at home, but giving them clear steps of this is what we're working on, and this is what you can support your child with at home, so we're all working together.
All righty. Perfect timing. We've reached the bottom of the hour. It's 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're tuned in to the Education Town Hall here on We Act Radio, which is located in the heart of downtown Anacostia, down the street from the Big Chair, here in Southeast Washington, D.C. However, we are coming to you live via our virtual platforms that are Anacostia adjacent. We have the honor and privilege of having with us today Principal Kristie Edwards from Randle Highlands Elementary School, Charlette Butler-Strickland, Principal at Hart Middle School, Go Hart Jets, I remember that time, and Courtney Wilkerson, Principal of Roosevelt High School and formerly of Sousa Middle School. So we're indeed honored and privileged to have you all here with us today. And so I'll swing back up. I know Valerie has a number of questions, and this last 30 minutes, we want to hit some harder topics probably. It would probably kind of pull back the veneer, if you will, on some of the issues. Because I'm gonna ask you about some structural stuff. I already asked you to think about earlier that we all want to deliver a great education to every student, no matter where they come from. But is that really happening, and to what degree? If it's not happening, I also want to ask a number of other questions. But I'll let you go first, Valerie, since I kind of took up most of the first half.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really good question. Are we actually delivering this, we collectively and you individually? But to that, I wrote down what Principal Butler-Strickland said. I think it was Principal Edwards. Sorry. I put in place people who can do this work so I can be here talking and without any concern. And the thought that immediately went through my mind was, how do you do this in an age of huge teacher shortages and budget cuts? I mean, I'm a DCPS parent. You're all DCPS principals. Every single year, we have budget cuts. And so now the DC Council's passed legislation to change the way DCPS does budgeting. The chancellor wasn't happy with it. It's gone through anyway. I'm just curious, how do you put in place those supports given those constraints?
So when I said building a community, I really meant that, like from the inside out. And so in doing so, again, it goes back to me figuring out the capacity of the people who I'm serving with. And so for Randle, I never bring in new initiatives in the building that will require me to hire additional people. I look at what can we put in place with the people who we already have in the building. So for me, I think I probably, in my 7 years of being there, I probably hired maybe 3-4 new people. That's it. Other than that, like whatever we're doing in that building, be it STEM program, be it a literacy program, it is about what the people in that building already have. Because I do ask them when hiring, like what degrees do you have? Like what are your strengths? And so I use those things to make sure that I can actually navigate the new things that we're putting in our building. For example, we had started a quick financial class, right? So my math teacher, who actually had some business background, became our finance teacher in the afternoons. So just like finding out, like I had this whole spreadsheet and they wrote down like all these different things that they either had skills in, they've done before, or, their different backgrounds. And I was able to we sat together as a faculty and created what we call advisory. And I know high school and middle school, you normally have advisories. So we created an advisory plan based off of those things that those teachers had to offer. And we were able to create these programs within our school. And I did not have to hire any new people. They just knew that when I said that we have to do this, a sense of urgency for what the students need, they bought into that. And they knew, because I have about 7 teachers on my staff who have children in my building, including myself. My son is at my school. So it was important that we created this environment that we would want to see somewhere else, right? And we knew that we wanted our children to be exposed to everything else that you could hear, that you could see, on the other side of town, right? So it was important for us to sit together and say, okay, here's some things that we're seeing across the river. This is what we want in our school too. This is what we're doing, like all over in our building, from French, having French in there, trying to get a Mandarin teacher in our building, making sure our students go on trips outside of DC, making sure our students are always, every month that my students are expected to go on a field trip, some type of exploratory learning. It is mandatory. It's not optional. So teachers have to come and sit down and create a schedule of where they're taking the kids that can either align to either instruction or align to just exploratory learning, some things that ideas that kids have had. So for me, worrying about the budget was not an issue.
So you're saying you have the financial resources to do everything that you want to do?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because so I want to bring this into, but she's leaving, to something that Principal Butler-Strickland said, where the kids at Hart are designing electives.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing to me, because my experience of my kids' middle school in DCPS, and it was also true at the elementary level too, was that the electives were always the first thing to get cut. It was like, oh, lost this teacher, teacher. So Principal Butler-Strickland, I was mentioning about how you had said that the kids at Hart design electives. How do you financially support that? Because to me, electives are the first things.
So
you're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry. Very similar to what Principal Edwards stated. So our electives are based on, so the kids give us ideas. So they wanted to, of course, do fashion design, cosmetology, dance, media production, music. Those are the things that they're interested in. And so first thing I did is, who in the building can do these things? And so I have teachers, and my teachers are already teaching a core content area, and their additional class may be that elective class. So my fashion design teacher is really my ELA teacher. My music teacher is somebody who comes in part-time that's within our community who teaches music and music production. So I've learned you got to be resourceful. It can't be about what other people, or depending on the budget to sustain what you need. It's about who do we know, who are we connected with, who will be willing to come in and do that work, and the talents that are already in our building right now who would love a break to do something that they're gifted in and sharing that other gift that they have with our students.
So it sounds like I'm hearing you both saying you have to be resourceful, and I get that, and I applaud you for that. But there's always been long time perception that West of the Park has more resources, not only because of where they're located, but because of the parents that contribute, that can fund supplemental funding to budget and stuff. And I know Ward 8 and Ward 7, the parents don't have, and the community does not have those resources to do that. So I want to ask, do you actually need more funding? Could you use more funding? Would you like to have more funding? I know you're resourceful, but wouldn't you want more funding?
Oh, God, yes, we would love more funding, but we learned how to manage with what we have as well. I didn't come from money, so I already knew how to manage money. So becoming a principal and managing the budget that we had was easy for me. Like I was like, okay, this is what we have right here. We invested in human capital to support the needs that we have for our students. So it wasn't about any type of financial restraints that we could possibly have, because a lot of our money also went into admin premium. So with admin premium, that supported some of the things that we were trying to do in school as well. So it wasn't about us having to have money to use outside of building, because we had field trip money, right? And then we could get tickets. I don't know if you remember, like my school was the one who won the money from the Ellen Show. So we actually had money that we was able to put away, $100,000 that we were able to put away, and we was able to pick it for the past 3 years, because we got that money in 2019. So we still have money in the stash to use for that as well.
So let me ask you this: how do you have the LSATs? So how are you working with your LSATs in with regard to the budgeting process and the things that ultimately happen at your schools? And I see Principal Wilkerson is back. Why don't we let you jump in?
I'm sorry, I missed the prompt. I had distraction as per normal. But
okay,
if you could restate the question, that would be helpful.
Well, we can come back. I'll let Principal Butler-Strickland. She was here, so I'll let her jump in.
So one thing I want to say about the budget and being a part of DCPS for the past 15 years, I believe in what can you sustain at your school? Because year to year, the dollars change.
Yes.
And even if my LSAT, which they've done, Ward 8 Council, Ed Council, they've done the advocacy work of getting us more money, but that's just that 1 year. So what are you going to do the next year? So it's really about what can you sustain within your building with or without that additional support is what is it has to be a skill or a priority for any school leader, because with every mayor, with every chancellor, with every whoever, it's going to shift. So what can you sustain that's going to last?
You know, I used to be chair of the Ward Education Council, so I'm glad you mentioned them. And one of the initiatives that we had back then with the former chancellor was sustainability. You can't pump up the dollars 1 year and it's not there the next year or the next 4 or 5 years. Anything that you do needs to be sustained at least for 5 years. You need to give folks 5 years to really implement and perfect whatever it is, new innovation that's going on. So I agree with that 100%. And so now, Principal Wilkerson, you kind of feel what we're talking about the budget. Are you satisfied with your budget allocation? Would you like to have more funding? How are you working with your LSAT in terms of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have our budgets yet, which she probably said, but our allocations, they're all appropriate. All of the algorithms, they work to try to be as aligned as they possibly can. Clearly, I'll be new to the Roosevelt's budget process. Not so much the process isn't different, but just the community. And our LSAT is always engaged. They have a LSAT team where everybody's voice has an opportunity to be heard, which is amazing. So I don't foresee, quite honestly, there being any sorry, that's the bell. All right, apologize for that. So I don't foresee there being any issues or anything that I can foresee. Budget seasons always bring their own level of surprises. But I'm confident that working together as a team, we'll make sure that what we need at Roosevelt, we have in place. And of course, we have a really strong community of community members, organizational partners who provide a lot of support. So I'm confident that we'll have a successful budget year.
So in the past, I know principals and LSATs didn't always agree. So am I hearing that you three are saying that everybody's on the same page, everything is hunky-dory?
Yeah, nothing's secret at Randle. Like the people who are on my LSAT, right, and my PTO, like we're always meeting. So it's nothing new for us, nothing new with Randle. So they're used to like teachers, like I don't hide anything, right? I make it known what we can do. I make it known what our money looks like. I make it known the needs of the school. So when we're communicating, again, going back to community, is always out there. So when it comes to budget season, we probably sit down for maybe an hour and then we're done. Like everybody knows what we need to do because nothing's really changing. We're just trying to sustain what we have. And that's the biggest piece for our LSAT is knowing that, like, are there any changes? Of course, like you stated before, our specials, right, are the ones that often get cut. And so for us, if it's foreign language, then we look at not losing it completely, but maybe going halftime and then seeing how can we compensate for something else in that area. But what we don't do is we don't lose teachers. That's what we're not going to do. So just being able to make sure that we keep that money in place and always looking at like who we have in the building. I think Principal Charlette Butler-Strickland said the same thing, is that we're working within the people that we have in our building so that it's not a lot of changes. And I think that for us, now, I guess Principal Wilkerson from Sousa, that's what has kept us afloat is maintaining the people that we have in the building, because there's not a lot of changes that have to take place because we work within the capacity of people that we have.
Valerie?
So I wanted to ask this sort of indirectly. Your schools are all in various stages of renovation, and Hart is completely untouched by renovations. So you all have talked about the importance of community in supporting the school and the adults in the community. And that's not just the caregivers, of course, it's neighbors who are aware, and as well as potential families. We have, like it or not, school competition. And I feel that if a school is unrenovated, if its facility is well used to the point of needing help, then that is sort of a strike against the school that no one inside the school can affect. And I'm wondering if you could talk about this aspect of being a leader of a school and trying to get the physical plant in place. You all have your challenges. Every school has its challenges. For instance, I know at Roosevelt, there were space constraints with the STAY program, which is now, I believe, going to another facility. Hart is unrenovated. And I know that Randle Highlands has a new early childhood center at its old building. So I just wanted you to talk about that. How do these facility concerns affect or not affect, the ability of you to, for lack of a better term, sell your schools to potential families, to existing families?
So I'll say for Randle, we sit in a very unique space anyway, right? We're sitting in between Boone and Beers. So in our space, a lot of it is pretty much word of mouth. And I don't think it's so much the building that's going to draw people to our school, but it's the work that we're doing inside of that building, right? So it does not matter like what our building looks like. We're going to always create that environment where it's welcoming and they can come in and learn. But I think it's about what they're getting when they're inside of the building that makes the biggest difference. And I think I can speak for Randle in that space, because even with the renovation that they did back in 2016, 2009 at the current Randle, right? That didn't change the fact that students were coming in and were learning, and that there was intentionality around the students growing. And even with our new building, we're still not to capacity with our pre-K building, but we're getting there. But I think for us, it was about the families understanding when they brought their child to Randle, good, bad, or indifferent, those children were going to be educated. So I think that's what created the space for us to continue to grow our students in our school.
Butler-Strickland?
Yes. So no, our school is not renovated, but when you come into our school, it radiates the love and it reflects the people who are in our building. Like, we are very intentional. If you walk into this school building, you see students, staff who are representative of our school. So when you immediately walk into the space, you're automatically disarmed because you're like, wow, they're really intentional about what you see when you walk in the building, and then you feel it throughout the building. So our kids, and you never hear our students say, well, we don't have this and we don't have that. Our building may not be modernized, but our kids have every single thing that they need to learn and grow. And that's it.
But let me just jump in, because Hart is the same building that I left in the 60s. Okay. And I know that. And I believe that students should have a 21st century facility. I was on the LSAT at Ballou, and that's how we got the new Ballou, because I directly talked to Mayor Fenty at the time, and we got into a conversation. He asked me, do you think it needs to be renovated, or do you think you need a new school? And I said, a new school. And so I believe that the facility can help improve the academic outcomes in the building. Now they feel
so like, I disagree there, because
okay,
if we say it's about a building, it's not. It's definitely not about the structure. It's about the people who are doing the work and what dictates a 21st century classroom. Because we have state-of-the-art, brand new smart boards on every single wall in our classrooms.
Okay,
Our kids all kids have a device assigned to them that they use throughout the day. Our teachers, so we are a STEM focused school. Our teachers have deep freezers to freeze their specimens. They cut up we have robotics. So we cannot say it's about the building. It's about what you invest in to put into the building. So I get it. We do not have a fabulous brand spanking new building, but we got a first class educational experience for every single child in the school.
And I'm glad you brought that out. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm glad, because that was unknown to me, and I'm really sure it's unknown to a lot of folks.
Come and visit. Come see for yourself.
Don't think I won't be there. I will be over there very soon. But that is great, because having like the smart boards and everything else you mentioned, that's outstanding. And I didn't know that. And I mean, having a great edifice is fine. A lot of people want that, but as long as you're providing the tools and resources within, like you just mentioned, I think that will sustain until you can get it renovated. At some point, it needs to be renovated or rebuilt, because
it is.
There's building obsolescence involved here. Okay,
yeah,
and so that's just the fact of the way it works. So. But I'm glad you pointed those things out. That's why I want to get to the nitty gritty. Let's get that all out here now. Okay, so I'll go back to you, Valerie, because that was a great point.
Oh, no, I want Principal Wilkerson to weigh in on this
Yeah.
because you can speak to two schools in this regard, not just Roosevelt with Roosevelt Stay and the overcrowding, but also Sousa. And you may recall years ago, that we had some conversation around the unused space at Sousa. So I just wanted to hear what you had to.
Sure. I really just echo what's already been said. We can talk about facilities all day long. We all know that there is a government agency designed to support the facilities, which is DGS. And I think that to have that conversation, we would be best advised to have that conversation with those people in the room. For us, our focus is on high quality instruction, regardless of whether we're in a one-room schoolhouse where our ancestors were, or whether we're in a building that was constructed in 1950, but Black children couldn't come to 1954, or whether we're in the building I'm in now, which has gone through renovations and modernizations, and all of those things, right? And so what I would just reiterate is that as school leaders, there are a lot of things that are, that, to your point, Mr. Bird, that contribute to a high quality educational experience. And those things are important, right? But again, our focus is making sure that we're creating high quality instruction to the best of our ability by supporting our staff members and our teachers. And, if possible, I would prefer to keep the conversation focused on conversations that principals have ownership over.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm just trying to get to the fact that buildings, when they become whole, they require more attention. So
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think that's in the realm of
work orders are piling up, or I don't know how you're doing with work orders, and DGS responding to those work orders. I mean, so
all of that is understood, and I still reiterate what I just said, which is I don't think this is the appropriate forum to have DCPS principals. I just don't think that's appropriate. I do think it's appropriate for us to acknowledge, yes, there are issues that we all deal with. There's a government agency that supports those issues. And, as school principals, our focus is high quality instruction and making sure what happens inside the building, regardless, like I said, one room schoolhouse like my ancestors, or a building that can house, 1,200 people.
I say you're very astute and know how to manage and navigate the political landscape. Wonderful response.
Can I just add another question on this? What do all of you hope for from the upcoming boundary process and master facilities plan? As you know, the boundaries are going to be for DCPS schools of right, at which you teach right now, are going to be rewritten. And I think that work is going to be done by the end of the school year. Also, concurrent with that is the new iteration of the master facilities plan. Previous iterations have allowed that schools that are, according to the analysis, under-enrolled could be either closed or made available to charter schools for co-location. So I wanted to ask all of you, if you had any thoughts on these upcoming issues, which will inevitably affect your schools.
And if I would just ask you, keep your responses brief because we only have a few minutes left, about 5 minutes. Anybody want to go first? Okay, now I gotta get a call on someone.
I was going to say I don't have anything to weigh in on that. Because whatever they're going to do, we're there to serve, right? We're there to make sure that whatever boundary they set, that we're welcoming the children within those boundaries or outside those boundaries, whether in the lottery. So for us, it's not about us having any say in that process, but just that we're making sure that we're welcoming our students, new and old, back to our school.
So let me get into, I know Valerie was going to bring this up, but it just popped in my head. Valerie, I know there's new social studies standards that have been approved and are going to be rolled out. So,
well, no, they haven't been approved yet.
I'm sorry.
They're up for public comment. No, it's okay. The Office of the State Superintendent of Education has now rolled out these proposed social studies standards that are up for public comment. And I didn't know if any of your teachers had input on those and if you had any thoughts on this.
All four of my social studies teachers have been a part of the process since the beginning. One of my former social studies teachers, he's actually one of the secondary social studies chairs, so he's been involved with it as well. From what I'm gathering from them, that they are, I'm pretty much happy with what the product that they put together. And I think the most valuable part is that they've been at the table since the beginning, so they feel like that they're invested in the work, and it's going to speak to what we want to make sure our students are learning on a daily basis in DCPS. So.
Anyone else? While we have a moment, I wanted to just share with you, Principal Butler-Strickland, that again, Hart is special to me for another reason, is because when I was working as a parent empowerment specialist, that's when I became very close with Liz Davis, who was there at Hart at the time. She's been my friend until the day she passed, and I just miss her. Every time I think about Hart, I think about her. So, and then there have been some other great teachers there that were mentors. You know, back in the day, they lived in the community, and so you saw them all the time. And so, Hart holds a special place in my heart. And I will be there, if not this week, next week. If you don't mind, I want to come by and just take a walk around and take a look, see. And if anytime I can help you with your PTA or whatever parent organization you have, hey, I'll volunteer. People said, I always ask me, why do you do that? Because I have no children. I've never had children in school, but all these children are my children. So that's the way I feel. That's why I give back. And that goes for all three of you. You know, any way I can be of service, and, you know, please feel free. And you all are definitely welcome. Your friends of Education Town Hall are welcome. And we have like 2 minutes left. So I want to give each of you an opportunity to kind of give a closing remark. What do you want people to walk away from? What do you want them to know about your school and what you're doing and what they can do to help your school progress?
I'll get started. I would just say, close, like the theme of the conversation for us has really been about community and creating community and long-lasting connections, so that every single student in every ward, every school is able to go to a place where the conditions are there for them to thrive. And thriving in an environment for our students now requires a lot of us to show up in a lot of different ways. Be willing to listen to children, listen to our staff members, listen to other leaders, listen to those of us who are in a position to influence directly the outcomes for students, right? And so whatever school that your son, daughter, niece, nephew, family member, next door neighbor attends, the best thing that I would recommend that you can do to help us in that work is to just be present, be visible, and again, listen. We are all one community. We are all one DC, and we want to make sure that everybody has equal access to everything that DC has to offer. And so whether I was at Sousa or here at Roosevelt, I'm leading with the lens of creating opportunities for everybody to thrive. And that's really what it comes down to for me.
Well, that was wonderful. And we're now basically out of time. Just went by so incredibly fast. I mean, an hour just got sucked up real quick. You all are wonderful and outstanding principals, in my opinion. Not that my opinion holds any weight, but I personally think you all are great. And so we would invite you to come back to the Education Town Hall when you have something that you want to say, because I created this show, this platform years ago, so students, parents, teachers, and administrators could have access to the public square. So you can get out there and talk about your school and talk about the positive as well as the negative issues. So you've all three done that today, and I appreciate your candor, and I appreciate your bravery, because I know the political environment that you're in. You know, somebody might hear this and say, "Oh, they talking out of school or something," you know. So I appreciate your bravery, and I certainly welcome you back. I am thankful for all those who have tuned in live on our streams. and those who will tune in later on to catch the replay of this, because it runs on WEAC Radio on Thursdays as well. Again, folks, we've been joined by three wonderful principals. Kristie Edwards at Randle Highlands Elementary School, Charlette Butler-Strickland, principal at Hart Middle School, and Courtney Wilkerson, principal at Roosevelt High School and formerly Sousa Middle School. Thank you all for joining us today on the Education Town Hall. Take care of yourself. And thank you, Valerie Jablow. Thanks to Virginia Spatz. And thank you all for tuning in. Until we meet again, be good to somebody. Peace.